fellows. Welcome to the next episode of Jagged with Jasravee. Subscribe to my channel for conversations at the edge with thought leaders from the marketing, branding, and the business world. Conversations that ignite new ideas with rough and sharp edges. Hi, Clint. So nice to have you on.
Hi. Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Okay. Clint, if I requested you to tweet your profile, what would you say?
Yeah, that's a good question. After some thought and deliberation, I decided it would be a 50-year-old entrepreneur finding solutions via oblique angles and loves tennis.
And loves?
Tennis.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I don't know if that was exactly oblique angles. Yeah, it's all about oblique angles in my world.
Isn't that very jagged?
Well, yeah, I thought you might like that.
Awesome. I was just talking to a friend some time back, and we were like, the best part of this life stage is that we know what works for us, the self-awareness. And we know where we can add most value. So that's amazing. Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Clint, when you say tattoo, not brands, you've written a book about it. Could you tell us about this approach? What is the unique aspect of it? And if you could use a case study to explain, how this is different from a conventional approach.
Sure. So, yeah, my book my first book took 10 years at least to write. So I think that it represents really what I know pretty well. And that's that there's a danger in every business, organization, influencer, movement, talking about themselves as being a brand, wanting to building their brand. Because they're not. A brand is something very rigid and specific. It's not bad. It's not good. It just is. A brand, the term comes from, burning an impression onto the skin of an animal, done for, practical reasons of understanding who owns what. So even on that surface, I don't think you want to be a brand. You don't want to force yourself rigidly onto the people that are going to be deriving value from what you do. However, a tattoo is flexible. It's a choice, tends to be something that is very much entwined with lifestyle. Doesn't have to be one thing. Doesn't have to be one thing to a lot of people. It can be narrative, personal, intimate, or public. Sort of a case study that is sort of easy to shorthand here is like if you think about Uber and Lyft. I read about this. It's kind of a easy way to think about it. I think Uber is a brand. Uber invented this category and has stamped, has literally burned their impression on the brains of the world, the globe. They invented a verb to become a verb. Generally, when something becomes a verb, that means that it is a brand and it should act like a brand. Uber has made the business decision to cover ubiquity, right? So I think the reason why they got profitable in the last few quarters is because of their food delivery service. And that was brought on by the pandemic and, things just like all things in life, you can't predict that. And they were at the right place at the right time. And it helped build their brand. They're also into logistics and anything where getting something or somebody from point A to point B is involved. So that's a brand. Now, Lyft is more of a tattoo. Lyft has chosen to focus on transportation. They've chosen to take a approach that is more personal, that often gets, or they were the first to get behind movements, BLM and Pride, and to embrace certain parts of the community where they felt they could be resonant. So their goal does not seem to be to solve every problem for every person as it pertains to getting something, but rather to address the transportation needs of certain people. You know, they have some scooters in major cities in the United States now. They also allow you to donate part of your fare to a movement or charity of your choice. So things like that are make the comparison for me. And then I'd also throw in one like Revel. Revel is a transportation company, if you're not familiar, that uses all electric vehicles as well as scooters. And the scooters are the ones that you scoot on, I guess. And there's also the mini bikes. Or I'm not a user of that, but so that's an even more sort of tattoo-ish thing, given the geographical limitations and their focus on EV. Is that helpful?
Yes, definitely. Clint, for our audiences to really appreciate the difference, could you talk about the differences or advantages of thinking of a brand as a tattoo and not as a brand? So you want a brand, but when you think of it as a tattoo, there are certain aspects of a tattoo that come to foresight, that changes the way you think of a brand. What are those aspects, and why has it become important for the times?
Yeah, I think the way to reframe that for me is, you don't want a brand. You don't want a rigid, forced interaction with the consumer. You don't. Most companies that are in the startup space or small to mid cap space, really, they don't want that. That it's just it's a terminology. So they want a relationship with customers, right? Mm-hmm. That's the way to think about it. So just like in any other scenario, I think you have to think about the type of relationship that you want to be able to foster with those that will most likely be interested and will be the least resistant to converting, to sampling, to understanding why why should I use, one of my clients is a eco-friendly housewares provider. Why should I use a bamboo toothbrush instead of a plastic one? Well, if you're interested in ocean conservation, then you better not be using a plastic one. So it's that type of sort of clear, stark lifestyle choices that may make sense for you and may be an option for you given your income or your education level, or just the way you look at the world. So flexibility is the hallmark of a tattoo, as well as it being a true reflection of your personality, which is a great thing to have with the things that you spend money on and things that you choose to be in your environment and in your daily use.
So the way we are doing branding, I mean, whether we call it a brand, whether we call it an interaction, whether we call it a relationship, is definitely changing. It's less static. Brands today need to be a larger space, and then they can be flexible, because when content is getting created, it does evolve with what is relevant to the consumer, but it's less of a fixed spot, and it's of a larger space typically, so that it can evolve with the consumer.
I think the best case scenario is growth that speaks to your ability to do what you do better than anyone else. Generally, growing too fast is the death of most companies, because either the product's not ready, or the support team's not there, or the instinct to be a brand and to build a brand and have this scaling that is untenable, puts you in a position where you can't ever compete because your resources are not at the same level as true brands.
Yes, yes. So, Clint, when you say decoding culture, what is your tattoo type? What do you mean by that? Could you explain?
Sure. So we have broken down tattoos in three major categories. First, there's the classic, the ones that have been around forever. They are clear, whether it's the mother in flowers and graphic type, or the anchor, or Mickey Mouse, or something like that. It's something that is tried and true, well known, and clear, but from its time in the market. Then there is the custom tattoo, where you're taking something very specific to you, and putting it on your body because it's specifically important. So that is akin to, bespoke companies, things that are allowed to be extremely customized to you, that have such a flexibility that they can speak to many people in the course of doing business. And then there's the contemporary ones, that tend to be trendy. You see a lot of sort of anime and a lot of Japanese airbrushing, and sort of very beautiful covering of a whole arm or a whole back. It's almost like a piece of art. And those tend to be, sort of businesses or organizations that have very of the moment relevance. And with those, the struggle is often, how do you maintain relevancy in the marketplace? So that's always a blind spot for something like that. Are you going to be excited about that tattoo in 5-10 years? And that's something, that evolution needs to be extremely top of mind for the leadership of that type of company.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so example like classic would be Coke.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Custom would be something like Land Rover. There's sort of a idea of rugged elegance, but there's a limited product line that's very customizable. And then a contemporary would be an online service like Eventbrite that we have in North America, that evolved significantly during the pandemic, going from a ticketing platform for small events to being more of a fundraising platform for events, for community-oriented events, so that it didn't have to be one thing. It could be whatever the value exchange was necessary for that situation.
And then you talk about the four main motivators, consumers, and I found that very interesting. So how did you make these four buckets, and what are these?
Yeah, it's derives first from Maslow's hierarchy. So that's a pyramid, and at the bottom, it's the basics: food, shelter, warmth, right? And you build up from there to the top, which is self-actualization and being the best version of yourself. So we developed this system. It's called the SNOW analysis, SNOW. And so if you think about it as a grid, you can take the potential audience for anything. You could you could look at the census and understand how many people live in a town or a city. Let's say it's 100,000. Those, and let's say let's say our business is a hair salon. Why not? So you would start with the S, which is people that are supposed to go there. So that would be easy math, because are you servicing men and women? If not, then you could eliminate many. You could eliminate probably half, right? Or if you're servicing both, but that's a business decision. That would be a good thing to think about before you even contemplate opening your doors. What is the size of your market? So supposed to is those that would get their hair done for me, I don't have much hair, but it's every 2 weeks for me, right? So if I'm going to look the way I want to look, the way I'm supposed to look, I would need to go every 2 weeks, different for different people. But there are patterns, there are rhythms to that, right? Then there's those that need to do it. So the need to do it are the people that whole identity is wrapped up in the way maybe a certain stylist is able to do their hair, their nails, their makeup, whatever offices so it's so important to you that you must go. You're probably going a couple times a week, right? And those customers have a lot of value. There may not be many of them, but they make up for the ones that come less frequently. Then there's O is for obligated. That's your, maybe it's your best friend, your parents, your aunts and uncles, people that owe it to you to do that just because of your relationship with them. Another way to think about that is like, with a museum and school groups. Oftentimes museums don't utilize that enough because the kids have to go to museums. It's part of their curriculum, and they don't. It's the teachers are less interested in which museum they're going to, but rather the fact that they're expanding the horizons of the kids. So that can work across, elementary school, colleges, graduate schools, all those. You can find things that are obligated to go, and that can help build your base. And then there's want to go, want, W, and that's those that are doing it because it's important to them. It's important to the way they conduct themselves, and it's somewhere in between the supposed to and the need to. It's they literally want to go there, and generally you just need to remind them. Maybe that's best through a loyalty program or through a discount, or if you're seeing through a CRM where you're not seeing them, you know that the intention is there. It's just a matter of reminding. So that's the SNOW system, and I think it's kind of simple, but maybe deceivingly simple, because everything's really a math problem once you look at it that way. There's no ambiguity if you're breaking it down in that context.
Mm-hmm. There are a couple of small questions. A, when you say giving your customers the opportunity to judge you is a smart thing, why do you say that? And also, why do you say that short-term thinking is killing marketing? If you could explain with examples what you mean.
Yeah, sure. So I'll take it in order. The first part of the love it, hate it, don't miss it came from one of the first campaigns I did in my career in the mid 90s at the Whitney Museum of American Art, and that we kind of addressed the fact that an audience for an art museum is going to have a level of education and general curiosity that might differentiate it from other things. So our decision was to not simplify the offering into a photo of one of the things that they could see, or several photos of one of the things that they could see, but rather appeal to their curiosity and intelligence and say, you know, I can't guarantee that this is going to be great, but I can guarantee that it's going to be very interesting. And I can guarantee that other people in your world are going to be talking about it. And if you want to be part of that conversation, then you can't miss it. So it leveraged the idea of FOMO, the fear of missing out, the idea of being part of the conversation, as well as not risking sort of giving a limited and potentially non-impressive view of what you're going to see at a museum exhibition. It's a tricky thing because it's never the same as being there in person. So that's where I started to think about that, and it had a lot of success, and that year was one of the best ever. The museum continued to utilize it, so I knew there was something there. And then I started to see how it could be used in other work that we did, and also how it was being used in things like the Dos Equis beer campaign of the most interesting man in the world, who says, you know, I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I drink Dos Equis. And that has a similar level of confidence and a similar level of sophistication that's saying, you know, it's up to you. But if you don't try it, then you may be missing out on something really important. So that's what I was thinking there. And then with the short-sightedness, I think that ties back into some of the stuff that we were talking about before, and the idea that you have to be everything to everybody immediately. And that is a temptation that has to be curtailed, because it does not respect the laws of attraction, the laws of reality, the laws of psychology. You know, nobody is able to make a judgment about something so quickly that it results in a purchase. Yes, a small part of the market does that, between, you know, 0.1% and maybe 2.5% on a general adoption curve. But that's a tiny part of the market. That's leaving 99 to, you know, 97.5% of the market out. And it requires patience and a longer point of view in order to see the true momentum and the true trajectory come together for marketing goals.
And Clint, when you say nonprofit organizations and social impact enterprises, there is a way they can be best version of themselves. What do you mean?
The simple solution there is to think of yourself as a tattoo. Think of yourself as a place and a resource that speaks to real people with the type of ambitions that connect with the mission, as opposed to being one thing to, you know, to a community. You know, I think it does tie back into the love it, hate it, don't miss it as well. So, you know, we will do everything we can to fulfill our mission, but it requires a collaboration and a relationship with the customers, where we need to be making progress based on mutual work. You know, a nonprofit is really a place where things that would normally thrive in the commercial marketplace will have a chance. So, but that requires a different connection with your customer, and asking them for their participation, their contributions, their ideas, and their support, really. And I don't see that enough. I see more very product oriented approaches, where you're often just seeing a photo of something and an announcement that it's happening, or a plea to help without any context. So you have to tell a story. You have to be authentic. You have to really understand that there's many reasons for somebody to care about something as dynamic as a social impact organization or a movement.
What's something new happening in your life right now?
A new book.
Okay. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would that be?
Spain.
What would you change about yourself if you had to?
More discipline.
Okay. Your favorite childhood memory?
The Jersey Shore.
Okay. Your guilty pleasure?
Expensive tequila.
Your deepest fear?
Acceptance.
If you were to devote the rest of your life to philanthropy, what cause would you choose?
Ocean conservation.
How would you like strangers to remember you?
Quiet but funny.
What is a lesson that took you a long time to learn?
Authenticity.
And I'd request you to share any online addresses, which we provide in the show notes as well. Also about your book, how they can get to it. All the links will be provided.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Tattoosnotbrands.com is the main hub. Podcast, book, consulting, general thoughts and insights are also on all the social channels. Every day there's stuff and samples of the book and stuff like that. So would love everyone to engage with it and start a debate. And my whole goal is really just to introduce this concept and get people talking about it and debating it and telling me I'm wrong, telling me I'm right, or somewhere in between, and just being better marketers by poking some holes in the old gates of marketing. You have to like, subscribe, and
share,
experience this amazing podcast.